Well, we appreciate you pressing play on this Temple Daily Telegram sports podcast. We have reached week 7 for Class 1A through 4A and week 3 for 5A, 6A, and TAPS.
That's really kind of crazy that we are on the back end for the smaller schools.
I know. You kind of lose track of like what week it is, what day, what month, what time, all of that. You before you hit the button, to start recording on this, you said, "Are we ready?" And we said, "Yeah," but I don't know.
I don't know if we ever are
really ready.
Way to provide the listeners with a behind the scenes view of me.
Well, we
want
to be transparent, as much as we can while we do this. Anyway, Josh Weaver back with Daniel Zepeda.
Hello.
And Marcus Hood over there.
Howdy.
Looking forward to this latest edition of the podcast because we're getting kind of, like we mentioned, into the nitty-gritty of some of these districts. Will teams separate themselves to the top? Are teams going to fall back? Any late season surges? We had a bunch of teams kind of with big rebound victories last week. Troy, one of them, Academy, Rogers, Holland. All of those teams got back into the win column and really kind of have a chance to change the course of the season. Rockdale had a good win as well over Cameron in the Battle of the Bell.
Oh yeah, did they win that one? Yeah, I think they.
And I think the word of the week for Temple and Belton, even though the Wildcats are 2-0 and the Tigers are 0-2, is consistency. Both want more of that as the season goes on.
For sure.
But before we get any farther along with this, Marcus, how about those scores and results from last week's action?
Last week's action. All right. Well, let's start where the one that everybody cares about, Temple 28-13 over Magnolia West. Your Wildcats are now 2-0.
2-0.
Round Rock 35, Belton 33. Your Tigers are 0-2, but two very well contested tight ball games.
Close, but no cigar.
Yep. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about those in a minute. Let's move on. Salado 63, Gatesville 3. China Spring 52, Gerald 20. And the Battle of the Bell, Rockdale 42, Cameron 9. I'm sure that turned a few heads out there.
Surprising.
Academy 45, McGregor 42. Talk about another team that bounced back a little bit there. Troy 49, Lorena 41, another tight one. Rogers 43, Clifton 7. Holland 26, Thorndale 21. That one's always a fun one to watch. Mm-hmm. Thrall 15, Bruce Valetti 13. Hearn 41, Rosewood Lot 0. Milano 24, Bartlett 6. And then the Jonesboro Junior Varsity defeated Buckholz 44-40. Shiner St. Paul beat Central Texas Christian School 49-28. And Holy Trinity Catholic defeated Round Rock Christian 68-20. And our newest school, Lake Belton, another win for them as they defeated the Hutto Junior Varsity 28-20.
Your Broncos 4-1 on the season.
Yep. And we have another busy week. This week, actually, all of our teams are in action. Not one team idle, from what I can tell, looking at this.
I believe that's correct.
And here we go with what is on tap. Thursday, we have a obviously non-district game between Lake Belton and College Station A&M Consolidated JV. That one's going to be at Belton High's Tiger Field. Moving along to Friday in a couple non-district games. Arlington Martin at Temple for the Wildcats home opener. And Belton has a long way to go to face Midland Lee at Grande Communications Stadium. Both of those games are at 7 p.m.
Daniel will be leaving right after this podcast.
Yeah, basically.
I got the car gassed up. I got my overnight bag. I'm ready to go.
Yeah,
and it's only Wednesday.
Enjoy the road, man. I mean, it'll be a nice experience. Get to check out a stadium you haven't been to, but trust me,
just set it on cruise control and wake me up in 5 hours.
After having to drive a whole bunch the last couple weeks, you're going to appreciate when you get back home and back on that couch.
That is true.
All right. Also Friday in District 9, 4A2, Gatesville at China Spring, Gerald at Robinson, and Salado at Waco Connolly. That's probably the game of the week in that district right there. Salado at Waco Connolly. Those teams usually play each other pretty close, so that'll be another good one there. District 11, 3A1. That district is a cluster right now. What is it? 4 teams at 1-1, or is it 5?
Actually, yeah, we're going to go with 5.
Yeah, five teams at 1-1. We have one team at 1-0 and another team at 0-1. So
Still early, but kind of how we thought it would play out.
Yeah, well, and then when you look at the matchups coming up, Academy at Cameron, Rockdale at Caldwell, and Troy at McGregor.
Yeah.
Which way are things going to go?
There's only one of those games I feel almost certain about, and even that I'm not really
Right,
sure.
yeah. And then in District 13, 3A2, Rogers at Franklin. Rogers coming off a big win last week to even its district record at 1-1. Faces Franklin, which has been on a roll after it had a slight COVID interruption there, I think in week 2 or week 3, somewhere
Right.
around there. But Franklin, that's a tough road game for Rogers coming up. In District 12, 2A1, Bruceville Eddy is at Hearn. Hearn looks like it's the real deal this year. Holland at Moody, and Rosewood Lot at Thorndale. In District 13, 2A2, Iola is at Bartlett, Milano's at Granger. And then a couple other non-district, or one other non-district, Buckholt's at Centex Homeschool. And I don't see, did I miss it? CTCS's game area.
Yeah, the
Brazos Christian?
Yeah,
Right.
That's right, yeah. I didn't see that on that
Brazos
list here,
Christian,
but
and then Holy Trinity Catholic at Austin Veritas
thank
as
you
well
very
for
much.
TAPS.
Yes, yeah. I didn't see those. We must have printed this way before the TAPS
That was
schedules were finalized or
before.
something.
Yeah.
But with the
Yeah.
way everything changes each week, you have no
Yeah.
idea what's going to stand or not.
Yep. So that is what is going on this week. A lot of good stuff. Just real quick, Temple coming off a victory over Magnolia West, as we mentioned, 28-13. Big sequence in that one for the Wildcats in helping them move to 2-0 was a late in the first half. West was driving down, and Temple created a fumble. Drove the length of the field in about a couple minutes, scored right before halftime to make it 21-13, and Temple added a touchdown in the second half, and its defense recorded a second half shutout, holding a second straight opponent to just 13 points, which was big. This week, Temple head coach Scott Stewart says, we haven't played our best football yet.
2-0, and that's his.
Two very, just good wins. One, against Longview that really kind of opened some eyes. Stewart didn't like the way the following couple practices after that win went, and he thought that kind of showed a little bit against Magnolia West. It wasn't the most productive offensive performance, but it still got the job done defensively. They gave up more than 400 yards, but if you don't let teams into the end zone, those yards don't really mean a whole lot.
Yeah, kind of a bend don't break mentality.
Exactly, which is another thing Scott Stewart doesn't really like. He doesn't like that term. He'd rather,
Daniel, their
Yeah.
guard, Scott
man.
Stewart.
But he says it's better than bending and breaking. So, so there's that.
He is correct. Yeah.
But with Arlington Martin coming in, this is third straight week where Temple is playing a team that made the playoffs last year, and these 3 teams won 75% of their games last season. So this non-district schedule for Temple has really been a nice measuring stick for district that's coming up next week for 12-6A teams. Arlington Martin is 1-1 on the year. They lost to Denton Ryan in the opener. That game was actually right before Temple played Longview. And then they beat, who did they beat? The Woodlands College Park 37-0 last week. I think College Park was supposed to play Bryan, but that game got nixed because of
I think so.
COVID. But, Martin went 11-2 last year. They have a quarterback, Zach Mundell, who will run it and throw it. He's got a couple receivers, Cal Robinson and Sid Ford, who like to stretch the field. Ford will see some time at quarterback as well. And then they got a bunch of different running backs, kind of a thunder and lightning thing, from way back when with Tiki Barber and Ron Dane. Well-rounded on offense. And then on defense, a couple of really skilled linebackers that have Temple's coach's attention, Travell Johnson and Maurice Blackwell, who's actually committed to Texas right now. So another strong test for Temple in its home opener. I know Wildcats fans are kind of looking forward to seeing the team in action closer than 2.5 hours away. On October 9th. It's the last home game for Temple was November 6th or something like that.
You're talking about a solid 11 months there.
Essentially, yeah. Been a long time. And then just a couple of real quick notes to get some players out there. Samari Howard helped get in the rushing attack going last week with 111 yards. That was after the Wildcats were held just 38 in week 1, 38 as a team in week 1. Quarterback Humberto Arizmendi, he lost a fumble last week, but he still only got the one interception. I know Temple fans want to knock on wood on that one, but one interception in about 50 attempts in his first 2 varsity
it's pretty good
starts, so that's not bad.
Not at all.
And his distribution, hitting his receivers, has been pretty even. Michael Harrison Pilot has 13 catches, and then we got 2 with 7, A.J. McDuffie and Terdarius Taylor, and then 2 with 6, Luke Allen and Howard. So, Temple's offense, I talked to the offensive coordinator, Josh Sadler. He's like, we're used to scoring on every drive. So last week it was a little bit of a letdown for us just as far as meeting expectations.
Right.
But that potential is there for that to happen with this team and with those skill players.
Pretty explosive at times.
Oh, definitely. And speaking of that, I mean, you've seen some glimpses out of Belton the last couple weeks, and the Tigers just have not been able to put it together.
Right, yeah, for sure. I mean, that's
for an entire game.
Brett Sniffen, the head coach over there, that's his message right now. Just putting together, a full 4-quarter game is just number one priority. The Tigers have the capability. I mean, they have the talent. They have the experience. I mean, there's really not a whole lot of excuses when it comes to that. But, it's been a weird year, and, they've got a new head coach, new system, so they're just trying to learn everything they can and get it all as comfortable and get it all as firm as possible before the games really start to count for real when district starts next week. So, last week, for those of you who traveled out to Round Rock, the game came down to that last drive for Belton. Belton had the ball at their 1-yard line with, I think, less than 4 minutes left, and Ruben Jimenez, the quarterback, who had a pretty phenomenal game, honestly, after being a little bit subpar in that opener, led the Tigers all the way down to the Dragons' 1-yard line with a 8-yard pass there at the end to get down to the 1. Brett Sniffen admitted, looking back, they probably would have taken a timeout there, tried to run a couple of plays to get in for the touchdown, but he tried to hurry up the offense, and, some miscommunication there. There ended up being a sack to push them back to the 5-yard line. That by then there was 2 seconds left, so again, hindsight's 20/20. But play of the game, Tigers line up what would be the 22-yard field goal for the win, and Round Rock's Ty Dillon just kind of comes off the edge there, pretty much untouched, and just beautifully lays out, as far as he can, gets both hands on the block, and it was a pretty awesome play, honestly. It's not great for Belton, but it was pretty fun to watch.
And you had said that kid that he might have tipped an extra point earlier in the game. Or
I think he got to an extra point. Okay. I confirmed with Sniffen because the Tigers missed a field goal earlier on their very first possession, and he didn't think that he got to it. He just thought Zach White, the kicker, just kind of shanked it left. But and Zach White's, he's fine. I mean, he had a really good opener with field goals, I think, of 25 and 37 yards. So he'll be fine. Just one of those games, but still, just kind of if the Tigers can just put together a game where they start well and finish well, they'll be good. But it's been a tale of two halves in both of their games. You know, in their opener, they started really well, led 27-7 at halftime against Georgetown, and then they give up 29 unanswered points there in the second half. You know, so that's definitely not how you want to start the season. And then the exact opposite versus Round Rock. You know, they fall behind 35-7, trail 35-14 at halftime, and then, you know, Sniffen said, you know, there wasn't a great halftime speech. You know, there wasn't just all of a sudden they got, you know, Round Rock's playbook. You know, just nothing like that. It was just, you know, really starting to focus on the details, focus on executing. And when they focus on execution, you know, you can see what they're capable of. But yeah, Ruben Jimenez, like I said, he had a great game, 315 yards passing, 4 touchdowns to add on to his 139 yards rushing to lead the Tigers. Maurice Reed, the running back, had his best game of the season so far, 133 yards. He also had a 54-yard touchdown pass caught from Jimenez, and then really kind of not only got Belton on the board with an 85-yard kickoff return for a touchdown, but that really kind of started to shift the focus, because up until that it was 28-0 Round Rock there in the second quarter, and Belton really just kind of dead in the water, really. Not a lot of energy, not a lot of hustle, but all of a sudden Round Rock scores, Belton comes back, and Reed takes it all the way to the house for 85 yards, and, you know, all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, let's try to figure something out. And then, you know, second half starts, Belton has to punt on their first offensive possession, but then they score on a touchdown pass. I think they score on their next one after that. All in all, they scored touchdown passes on 3 of their 6 possessions in the second half. You know, would have been 4 for 7 had they gotten the score there at the end there. But, you know, shoulda, coulda, would have. But, you know, I asked Brett Sniffen flat out today, you know, is it more of a healthy concern being 0-2 on the season right now, or is there any panic or any true worry? And, you know, he was very kind of casual. You know, obviously you don't want to be 0-2, he said, but, you know, it's non-district. So right now you focus on yourself, you focus on what you can do better, shoring up things. Every day in practice, he says he can see kind of the light bulbs going off in some of these kids' head. And hopefully they continue just to play well all the way through for the Midland game. That way when Killeen in the district opener rolls around next Thursday at Leo Buckley, you know, they'll be ready to play to the capability that they can.
Yeah, I think Lee's 2-0
right
going into this one, but I think the Tigers are going to match up pretty well against the Rebels.
It should be
usually
good
when you get, you know, a team out this way going to West Texas. There's some advantages as far as, you know, speed goes and things like that.
Yeah, I mean,
we'll see.
Midland Lee, I mean, they like to put up points, or they've done it so far this season. They scored 54 in the opener, and then they won 31-21 last week. Offensively, for the Rebels, you know, they kind of have a 3-headed monster there. Their quarterback, Mikey Serrano, he's really an accurate passer. When he does throw it deep, they like to target Christian Ramiro, who has 16 catches for 189 yards and 4 touchdowns. No other Rebel after these 2 games has more than 4 catches, and he has 16. So they definitely like to target him a lot. And then they kind of have a stable of running backs there, kind of different guys that they can go to at any time. But McKalen Young is probably the top guy so far. So we'll see what they can do. Again, Sniffen just said, let's just worry about us. And maybe once district gets here, we can start worrying about other opponents. But the Rebels on defense, you know, sometimes they give up the big plays and mistakes. And if that happens, the Tigers got to be ready to capitalize.
Is it still Midland Lee?
For now it is.
Well,
yes,
it is, but
Midland
the
Lee.
I just thought I'd bring that up. You know?
The Lee is L.E.E. That's what's being voted on, I think, coming up with.
And what did that stand for again?
Legacy of
equality and something or other. I can't remember exactly, but yeah, that school's going through a bit of a change.
It's the same but different.
Out there, yes. That is true. The same but different. Speaking of that, sort of, Salado and Waco Connolly, the same teams, different year, but I expect another very good game in that one. And in that district, 9482, China Springs, Salado, and Connolly are all 1-0. Gatesville, Gerald Robinson 0-1. Salado's won 4 in a row coming into this one. Connolly is 3-2 overall. But I don't know that a loss is going to damage Salado's playoff hopes at this point. I mean, they'd have to spiral pretty big. It looks like they're going to have they should be able to pick up enough victories in that district to finish in the top 4. Just considering the bottom 3 and the way those teams have been playing this season.
Definitely, and you look at that score from last week. I mean, I didn't check the details, but an offense like Salado, the one they run, that's not an offense that's going to put up 63 points a lot of times because they, their clock control, run the clock down, kind of gives up an entire quarter. So 63 points, that's kind of a statement number right there.
Yeah, I think they had probably a number of long rushing touchdowns. I know they returned an interception for a touchdown as well.
Sure. You kind of figure that's
defense.
Probably a lot of long running touchdowns that just like you said, don't eat up a lot of the clock.
Right.
But Salado, China Spring, and Connolly look like it's going to be those 3 teams vying for the district championship.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people kind of figure this is probably going to be the game that determines second place because I think more people are leaning towards China Spring being the best team. But,
okay.
I mean, both these teams, Salado and Connolly, are going to want to have something to say about that for sure. And then, of course, the other game is Gerald Robinson. That could actually be a battle for that final playoff spot.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a lot of separation between those top 3 and those bottom 3, really.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about the 4 spot to get into the playoffs. But yeah, Gatesville, Gerald, and Robinson, I guess, Gatesville could get, have that one game that, gets them over the top. And then down to 11 through A1, we mentioned it at the top of this, just how crowded it is, after last week. Troy was idle the week before, which followed just kind of a rough game all around against Franklin and a loss. And they come back and beat Lorena 49-41, which the previous week beat Academy, which last week comes back to beat McGregor. So Academy, Rockdale, Lorena, and McGregor all 1-1 in that district. Troy's 1-0, so technically they get put up at the top just because of winning percentage, and then Caldwell down at the bottom at 0-1. But how do you figure Cameron Yo's going to respond after getting beat pretty handily in a Battle of the Bell? They get Academy at Yo Field this week.
Yeah.
Academy comes back to beat McGregor with its second string quarterback playing the entire game, who played pretty well, Colin Mraz. And then Troy, they kind of had to come back in that one too, down early, and then just poured it on with Zach Herbacek rushing for more than 300 yards.
Which just seems like just what we say every week.
I know. Yeah. But how do you even go about picking these games this week? It's
you just put their names in a hat, just kind of pull it out. I don't think any of us saw the Battle of the Bell being that one-sided, and it was a matter of. It was kind of close the first half, and then Rockdale got I want to say they got a kind of a late score, and then on the second half opening kickoff, Yo fumbles it, and Rockdale has good field position to make it a 28-9 lead or 28-6 lead. And looking at that one, Rockdale just, they just played better on defense. Yo just had no answer for Rockdale's blitz most of the night. They just weren't adjusting to it that well. I think that was kind of the difference, and that's not going to happen every week. Obviously, Yo's usually good about adjusting to these things, and it just didn't happen there. But yeah, you can see Yo winning against Academy. You can see Academy beating Yo.
Yeah.
You can see Troy or McGregor, either one of those. And then you can't totally rule out Caldwell. they've got some athletes. They've
That's
got
what-
some speed.
That's what I was thinking. I mean, I know Caldwell's kind of down at the bottom of the district right now, but Rockdale with that big win last week, but as up and down as they've been the
Right.
past few weeks, and that whole district, anyone can beat anyone any week. So I mean, yeah, even that one where on paper you might look at it and be like, okay, that's probably a safe bet. It's not. So
Yeah, especially, I mean, because Rockdale could still be just off the high of beating Cameron and just kind of have a real down week. I think they're probably a little bit better than that, but they went into that Cameron game after a couple of losses that just you were going, what is going on? And we were talking about it. We didn't know what was going on up there. They just come out and just kind of take care of business against the Yeoman. And then Caldwell's a big problem. They have athletes, but I think they have 20 lost, 20 turnovers on the year, and that's no good. If they do that against Rockdale, it's not even going to be
right. It's over.
Yeah, 42-9 is going to be like, yeah, we'll take that any time. But yeah, I mean, it could be a lot worse than that because Rockdale will capitalize on that all night long. So yeah.
And just to illustrate one last point, or another point, just of how competitive this district is. Academy has given up only 108 points overall this season in 6 games. 83 of them in 2 district games. 83 of the 108 in 2 district games, which puts them. That's the second most points allowed of any of the district teams during district. So that's And that's after, Jalen McWilliams had his 3rd or 4th interception return for a touchdown last week, too. So,
real quick point I want to bring up, Marcus, me and you were talking about it last week, or it may have been this weekend. For those who look at that,
you guys
Cameron
just call each other and talk about stuff? Or?
Well, we've tried calling you, but you don't pick up.
I do. I hit the red decline button.
That makes sense.
Click.
It's like
Straight to voicemail.
East Bell County or West Bell County
Yeah,
type
man.
of thing.
Oh, yeah.
We just get
I
together.
know you guys
out.
do have that.
Coppers Cove, Harker Heights,
Yes.
man. But for those who look at that Battle of the Bell score and really kind of raise their eyebrows, and they should. You were saying that really historically those games are typically not close, which is really I found unusual because over at least the past 10 years, more than that, both of those teams have always had really strong programs. So I mean, is that kind of true what you were talking about?
A little bit. I mean, the last few games have not really been all that close. I think you got to go back to the year where they played each other twice, and the year once in the playoffs where you really had a 1 touchdown game, and that's been about 5 or 6 years now at least, something like that. But I mean, even the one from a few years ago where Rockdale scored 80-something points and Cameron put up another 60, it was still a 20-something point win. Which you look at that and you're going, okay, that many points does not seem that lopsided. But
Yeah.
I mean, there haven't been a lot of just single scoring games or a margin of victory less than a touchdown or less than 10 points in the last few years. I mean, going back a little bit further, they've played some tie ones, but more often than not, it's one team just kind of dominates it.
Yeah, right.
Historically, it's been Cameron. But.
Yeah, I mean, even the last few Battle of the Bell games I've covered the past few years, I mean, usually a team will score middle of the 3rd quarter, towards the end of the 3rd, entering the 4th, and usually by then it's pretty well decided. So it's pretty rare where you have one of those teams coming down to the wire. So I just always thought that was interesting with, how fierce that rivalry is and how strong those programs historically are. So
yeah, that's the thing. It's even if they're not close, you still don't really know who's going to win each week. I mean, it could be the last game of the season. One of them, let's say Cameron's 9-0 and Rockdale's 0-9, and Rockdale could win it just because it's the Battle of the Bell,
right?
And win it handily. Just it's that type of game.
Yeah, we'll have to figure out, to add it in our capsules this week. Just going back to Academy at Yo, when the last time Academy beat Yo might have been. I'd like to know that.
I would have to go to the research.
Yeah, we'd have to
out.
look that up. Hopefully we can get that into our paper coming up. I think Tim Waits is covering that one for us, so he probably has that, in one of his journals or something like that.
He might. He's got a lot of historic archives. Some of it.
Yeah.
Some of it's worthwhile. Some of it, I don't know.
Yeah. Rogers, Holland, both of them, like you were talking about, coming off of Rogers more than Holland as far as must-needed wins last week, but I mean Holland dropped 2 in a row, so that was kind of a must-need win for them as well. So.
Yeah, Rogers beating Clifton last week was big for the Eagles, just because that's another district where the third and fourth playoff spot is probably the 2 spots that are going to be the most up for grabs, and now Rogers and Clifton are both 1-1, and below them are Florence, Lexington, and Riesel. Lexington, one of those teams that's usually pretty good, and they seem to catch on later in the year, and that's when Rogers will meet Lexington. But a tough test with Franklin. Loss doesn't spoil anything for Rogers, but
no, but I mean, Lexington is 3-1 overall. They're just 1-1 in district.
Right.
So yeah, Rogers, you definitely don't want that second loss. You'd like to stay on top. So
And
just kind of carry that momentum over.
Yeah, in Holland's district, 12-2-1. Hearn is 4-0 overall and 2-0 in district. Thrall is now 2-0 in district and 4-2. Holland and Thorndale are 1-1. Again, Holland would like to keep the momentum rolling. Playing Moody, which has struggled to put points on the board this season. But yeah, that's again, I think anything can happen in those top 4 spots in that district.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you're entering week 7, so I mean, you still got plenty of time left to make a move, and now's the time. If you're going to make a push, go ahead and start pushing.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's going to necessarily happen this week, but this is kind of the type of game that like a Bruce Valetti team could actually pull off an upset against Hearn. I mean, Bruce Valetti's been playing some guys close. They played Thrall to a 2-point game last week. And Hearn's pretty good, obviously, but, you still kind of, just historically, I've been here so long, you just still kind of waiting for Hearn to kind of implode on itself.
Sure.
And hopefully it doesn't. I mean, I'd hate to say that about any kids, whether they're local, whether they're 5 states away, but it's just what Hearn is historically.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and Rosebud Lot has the potential to play spoiler as well and get itself back into the mix. At 2-3 overall, 0-2 in district. They haven't, district is a different beast for a young team like Rosebud Lot. 0-2. They've only put up 6 points the last couple weeks in district, but you never know. I mean, they could have an impact at some point this season in that district. Well, Daniel, you mentioned making a push. I was going to say you might as well just push the stop button on this podcast, but we do need to run over some stats real quick, right?
We can.
Yeah.
We will. I've got the packet here. Let's see.
Oh, wait. Marcus says...
I just want to go ahead and bring one other thing up real quick.
I love when you do this. This is such a surprise. I can't wait to hear it.
It's not really, but it's down in 6th man where Buckholz is playing. They're playing Syntax Christian Homeschool this week, but apparently word is in that district that Mount Calm has had to cancel their season this year, which means basically Buckholz just has to win 1 game.
Yeah, they Mount Calm. I did see that they just didn't have enough players, right?
Right.
To
and I haven't seen like an official word from Mount Calm. I've seen like on their schedule where the rest of their non-district games have been marked out, and maybe they're hoping to get kids back. But I'll kind of keep an eye out for that because that'd be kind of a game changer in that district. It's I mean
it's only 4 teams already.
Yeah.
So
win and you're in.
Yeah, and Buckholz, Buckholz, like they were outscored last week 20-6 in the second half of that loss. So it's just kind of for them. It's just kind of a matter of closing the game,
learning how to win.
Yeah, and some of those teams in that district, they might as well make it.
Yeah.
All right, Daniel. Sorry to
Marcus. I really appreciate you bringing that up. That was a good point.
There's so much sarcasm.
No, I'm being serious. That was great. That's a good point.
I'm here to let the people know.
Yeah.
So what are we doing next, boss?
I really think you should have some stats.
Should I have some stats? Okay.
The top 5 in those categories, and let's get on with it.
Let's rush through it. Speaking of rushing, all right. So here are your.
I like when you create your own segue like
that. Your area rushing leaders through week 6, heading into week 7. So, a guy that we don't really mention a lot on this podcast, wink, wink, Zach Herbachik out of Troy. He leads the area in rushing with 1,362 yards and 23 touchdowns by by and large the huge lead in that category. Noah Mesher out of Salado with 924 yards, 12 touchdowns. Derek Warren from Gerald with 819 yards, 8 touchdowns. Reed Vincent also from Salado, 730 yards, 5 touchdowns. Cameron Valdez from Rockdale with 667 yards, 10 touchdowns. And I believe he is now Rockdale's program leader in yards rushing and rushing touchdowns. So congrats to Valdez on that awesome accomplishment. Christian Riley out of Rogers, he had a big game last week. He now has 605 yards rushing, 5 touchdowns. And then we'll wrap it up with Aiden Tomasic from Holland, the quarterback there. He has 493 yards rushing on the season to go along with 6 touchdowns. So a lot of guys putting up some good numbers. So
I agree with you.
any bold predictions statistics wise this year or this week, Marcus? It feels like a year, but it's a week. So
Well, yes, some of those guys will have more yardage after this week.
that's a pretty safe bet. So
Good one.
Not much I can do with that.
Nah, thank you.
Good.
Moving on to the area passing leaders, Jerry Cephas from Academy. He did not play last week because of an injury, so we'll see what his status will be moving forward.
I've kind of heard unconfirmed that he was supposed to be out for 2 weeks, so he might not play this week, but we haven't verified that yet.
But
So.
like we said, Colin Mraz filled in
Nicely. Yeah.
admirably last,
right.
last week. Over
Pretty-
200 yards and game-winning touchdown pass. So,
Pretty
Yeah, 'cause like
impressive.
last year, I think they went through a quarterback battle between the two of them.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, you got that going for you.
You're right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and playmakers ever, which
Yeah.
we'll read a couple of them in a minute.
For sure. But yeah, Jerry Cephas from Academy, he leads the area in passing with 982 yards and 9 touchdowns. Zane Zeinert from Cameron Yo, he has 935 yards and 10 touchdowns. Kobe Mitchell from Rockdale, who stepped in at quarterback when their starting quarterback went down with an injury earlier this year. He has 839 yards, 11 touchdowns. Trapper Inzer from Bruce Villetti, 685 yards and a pair of touchdown throws. Connor Cruz from Lake Belton, he's kind of done everything for the Broncos, 637 yards passing with 11 touchdowns. And then to wrap it up, we'll have Luke Mullins from Gatesville, 603 yards passing on the season with 6 touchdowns. So moving on to the other half of those passing duos. We'll start with the area leaders with receptions. Levi LaFavors from Bruce Villetti leads the area with 30 catches. Keyshawn Raven from Rockdale with 29. Jalen McWilliams from Academy with 28. Darion Franklin also from Academy with 24. Zachorian Spikes, Cameron Yo with 21. Carson Brizendine from Gatesville with 19. Jaden Simmons also from Academy with 18. Anthony Dansby, the tight end from Rockdale with 17. And then Johnny Ryder from Granger also with 17. And then your area receiving leaders for yardage. Jalen McWilliams from Academy, 431 yards, 7 touchdowns. Zachorian Spikes next with Cameron Yo with 408 yards and 5 touchdowns. Keyshawn Raven from Rockdale with 369 yards and 8 touchdowns. Anthony Dansby also from Rockdale, 354 yards, 3 touchdowns. Darion Franklin from Academy, 335 yards, 4 touchdowns. Jordan Landrum from Rosebud Lot, 331 and 4 touchdowns. Breon Lewis also from Rosebud Lot, 276 yards, 4 touchdowns. And then we'll have Carson Brizendine from Gatesville, 261 yards receiving with a trio of touchdown catches on the year.
Awesome.
Do you know what your stats are, Josh? What kind of numbers you putting up this year?
I don't know what you mean.
You're not catching passes from the press
No.
box?
No, I am catching nothing,
Nothing. Just trying to keep track of stats mainly.
basically. Yes. I thought you meant like what?
I don't know where this is going, but
Oh man.
I thought you meant like, because I picked up this paper that had the 6A and TAP stats, like you wanted me to like say.
Come
what
on,
was
man. You
here.
knew, that's what I was getting at.
No.
Oh man.
Anyway, we hope everyone enjoys this week of football and has a great weekend and comes back next week.
Come back for more, please.
Yeah, sounds great.
Cool.